Oh, that was quick. We're back, y'all. We got another incredible guest coming on the show. Yeah, yes, sir. We're grinding. We're grinding. We're grinding. It is grind season. Shofo should be joining us here in a second. We got some time now. I left a little gap in between. Now, I mean, the plan is we're grinding because, so a couple of things. Shofo will be joining us at about, I would say we got 10 minutes before Shofo joins. And I'm glad we have a nice gap in between because we can talk about some things that are happening with vesting. So you guys know the plan is to make vesting, the plan is to make vesting the biggest fucking media company on the planet, right? Like, just being completely honest with you. My goal with vesting is like, when someone thinks of early stage startups, they think of vesting. They think of vesting. They think of the work we're doing. They think of how we're building this out, how we're chatting with founders. Eventually, we have our own high quality news studio, like actual news studio, right? Like that is like overall like high level goal. It's like, how do we just absolutely crush the early stage startup domain for media and news? That is where we take vesting. And because that is the case, there needs to be a true delineation of resources, right? Like, and by a delineation of resources, I mean like Bryson and vesting are interconnected, but vesting needs its own socials, its own everything, its own IP across every single platform because it cannot rely on Bryson. It needs to live on its own. It needs to be its own media platform because ideally in the future, we'll be able to sign other creators. We'll be able to hire people that will be writing under vesting, that will be creating their own content beyond just me. And the only way you build a really generational company is if that exists. So with that said, I'm thinking this will probably be the last day that vesting is streaming on Twitch under the Bryson Twitch account. Going forward, vesting will have its own Twitch account. It'll have its own, like it has all its own other socials. We have an Instagram, we have a Twitter. Vesting will have its own Twitch account. And it will stream it'll be twitch.tv/vesting. Eventually it'll be twitch.tv/ I think it'll be vesting under TV to start and eventually it becomes just vesting. But yeah, it needs its own delineation. So when I stream twitch.tv says Bryson, it'll be just me streaming startup and venture capital stuff that is not like the vesting show. But the 45-minute to an hour-long vesting show will be its own show. And I think that like moving forward, it makes a ton of sense for like how we want to build, what we want to create, how we want this to kind of like grow as a media platform. So yeah, just wanted to make that delineation clear. Also, big shout out to Camille, man. He's been crushing it. Camille, I need to get the recent YouTube video you just posted. I need a link to that so I can post it on LinkedIn about Artharva. I need the link that you have for that one. So if you could send me like the download link, that would be splendid. But yeah, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab me some water before we get this next show started. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be exciting. But yeah, I just wanted to give that heads up. It's in your DMs. You're goated. You are goated, my friend. But I just wanted to give that heads up because I wanted everyone to understand, like, we're trying to take vesting the long haul. You need to unblock. I did block him because like, bro is. How the fuck do I unblock him? How the hell do you unblock somebody? That shit really, I've really blocked, bro. All right, I unblocked him. I unblocked him. I was like, bro, how do you even get hacked over there? That's actually crazy. All right, I'm gonna grab some water. I'll be right back, and then we'll get started our last show of the day. Oh, my throat was parched. The throat was parched, chat. Got to get some water before we start this next show. It is a Friday evening, man. What is the vibes on a Friday? Cloud going up. That's the fourth person that sent you that stupid message. Man, people getting hacked. That, I mean, I guess it doesn't really take much if you click the wrong thing and you don't have two-factor auth on. That's enough to pretty much do it. Alrighty. We have one more show. Cheers to a nice cup of water. We have one more show, and then I am off for the weekend to go golfing. Actually, I need to figure out, where are we golfing this weekend? Where are we golfing this weekend, boys? Alrighty. All right, let me pull this up. We need to talk about the company we are chatting with today and why they are actually very interesting in the grand scheme of things for someone like me who makes content. We're about to chat with a company called Shofo. Oh my gosh. Where are all the tea times? Country Club. Un momento, chat. I had to spit the gum out. All right, now we are ready. We are ready. So, to highlight it, we had a really solid chat with Pax Historia. Now we're chatting with a company that I did a little bit of background digging on this company. This is actually a quite interesting evening chat. And the reason why this chat is interesting is because what these guys are building actually makes a ton of sense. So basically what they're building at a high level is they're building scale AI, but for data, like for short form data, like on clips, videos, the whole 9 yards. So like they basically create a large subset, custom data set from millions of hours of video. They clean it, they label it, they segment it, right? And then they sell that data to AI, like foundational model labs, because of course, to train AI, you need tons of data. And I think this is a great idea, right? Like now I don't know the details in the inner working, but one of the most important things about having data to train AI is you need very high quality data. And if you can create high quality data, you can make a ton of money because teams will pay to hit that API to get that data to train their models, et cetera, et cetera. And there probably isn't any better customer to have right now than like OpenAI, Anthropic, and maybe like 3 or 4 other companies that like all have billions of dollars to spend on AI. So that's pretty much where we are. And for me, as someone who like cares very deeply about short form, I'm excited to just learn more about like what is the most valuable data. So without further ado, let me bring the founders of the stage that is creating the cleanest and sexiest data set for short form data. Brian, what's going on, my brother? Welcome to the stream. Appreciate you coming on.
What's up, man? Thank you so much for inviting me on today. Awesome to be here.
Man, it's a pleasure to have you because you're building in a domain that I care deeply about, which is like short form content, but you're going at it in a way that's like ultra interesting around this idea that getting training data or acquiring training data for something that is so readily available on the internet, which is like short form video, is super compelling to like these foundational model labs, and you can turn that into a business.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually started off with kind of like exploring just like the possibilities of short form video data. Because like I think we were very early on like, wow, this is something that's like super, super valuable to like a bunch of different people. So we knew that like it had like tons of applications.
When you think back like to, because I want to like jump into kind of you and your background and your journey before like going deeper into Shofo. Dropped out of UC Berkeley, have this crazy idea. You think you're like, I think this is like big, of course, in this era and day and age, for sure. But like, what was life like for you, like prior to, coming up with this idea and building? Were you always like very entrepreneurial? Did you know you wanted to do a startup? Like, give me like a deep dive into Brian.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think very early on, I was really big into like research. Back in high school, I did like a ton of different research. I explored like from like biomedical research to like urban planning research to now like CS research, I guess, at a little bit at Berkeley. And so I think I was like very much on the path of like, wow, like I really wanted to become a researcher, go get my PhD, go be a professor, right? But I think along the way, I like was like really interested in like artificial intelligence with like, the things going on. And I started to explore kind of like the field, talk to some people. Eventually I joined like a team to work on a startup before this, which is like how I eventually pivoted to Shofo now.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like my story was like, I was very much going to be a researcher before this.
And so getting into it, like when you were like, okay, there could be something here. Did you always have an idea that, okay, video would be the thing you go into? Or were you just kind of looking across the space for something that like made sense?
Yeah, that's actually super interesting. So I'll tell a story of like kind of how this started. So I met my co-founders building a previous startup called Correct.
Yeah.
And Correct at first was like a multimodal search engine. Like think about like Perplexity, but it was searching like short form videos on the web. So one example is like search up, we could be like, okay, give me every video of cat memes across the internet. And we'd search through like all these platforms to find the most popular cat memes across like the different platforms.
Yeah.
And so eventually from that, we got around 43,000 users. It was like a pretty big thing. It got like a lot of traction early on, but I think retention was like a pretty big issue with it. Mm-hmm. So eventually we were like, oh, like this isn't really working, like it's time to explore something else. while we were building this, we had this like giant index, this like giant repository of just like short form videos from across the web because like we were scraping at the time, and AI labs. And at first, it was like advertising companies sort of reaching out to us.
Yeah.
And so sometime around March, we founded Shofo, which stands for like short form video, and its whole purpose was to kind of like sell social media, this like short form videos to advertising agencies, social media creators. And I think eventually we applied to YC, I think during the in like fall and winter, got accepted, started talking to AI labs more. And we were like, wow, like this is something that like AI labs really need. And so that's kind of how we like molded ourselves to really find this specific niche.
Now, what about short form content? Like, is so interesting, right? Like when you think about the idea that you're labeling content, you're labeling these videos, but outside of what AI models already have, like what are some like subsets of things that people don't realize are interesting to AI labs that come from short form videos that like you've kind of figured out?
Yeah. So the thing that's like super interesting is the metadata associated with these fields, right? So like a lot of times it's like AI labs are like, okay, I'll just take like 8 hours of just raw footage and like they process it how their like teams to do it, right? But with short form video, you have a really interesting thing where it's like you could find out a lot about like social sentiment, about how people think about this video, like the comments on this video, the like counts and stuff like that, like as it grows. So you can see kind of like popularity between topics. You can kind of like see just like in general how people feel about specific things across the internet, right? Which is like pretty useful for AI labs. But also with videos, it also allows us to do something that's like really interesting, which is be able to segment out videos using a heuristic search first, right? So it's like you have ability to kind of like search through our index by using keywords and these other things, which is a lot cheaper than being able to be like, hey, like embedding everything and then applying like a giant semantic search across all these videos. So something like that's like really, really interesting about short form videos is that just it's so easy to work with because of these like keywords inside, how you can like kind of filter in what people like or don't like.
When you look at kind of the landscape of sentiment and why AI labs would want to have like sentiment on what's cool, what's interesting, what's popping, what's not, do you see a world where like Shofo as like a company is not only selling to labs, but like creating your own products? Because you're going to have data that like these labs clamor for, but how do you see yourself using the data beyond just like, oh, we like selling the short form, to like these labs, but you could do anything with it.
Yeah. And I think another part is I think eventually down the line, we want to explore the possibility of doing more, going back with like advertising space, right? Like looking at human behavior, kind of seeing what people are exploring, what's like popular in this world. As like originally we founded off as like an advertising company or like selling to ad tech companies for like this like data. And I think that like there's a lot of cool things that can be done for like in that space, right? I will say, I think we're kind of like our main focus right now has been like, we are moving away from just like short form videos, but also just like being this like giant library of all videos across the internet. And we're also getting like stuff from like private vendors and just kind of like an aggregator of just like this like giant library of every possible video that we can find from different sources across the web.
What's the hardest part about training data in a way that is unique and different from what other like data aggregation companies are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a ton of internal workflows, like internal tools that we have to develop for this, right? A typical workflow for us is like, okay, let's say a lab needs 50,000 hours of like cooking videos with like hand object interactions, right? We have to kind of like fine tune a model to be able to like, okay, realize that this is something that's like, this is someone that's cooking. This is someone that's, like using something with like their hands in the video. This is like POV video, for example, if they want like a POV data set. And so we have to train and fine tune models to be able to detect this, like things like this, right? We've actually built like a lot of interesting internal work tools to do this. Like besides just models, we have kind of like systems that allow us to do RLHF internally. So it's like we have the system we built like Tinder swiping for like videos. So it's like it gives us kind of like the model's output of like correct videos that it thinks like fit the category of like this. And then we manually go through every video and be like, hey, like this is a good one, this is a bad one, this is a good one, this is a bad one. And then we save like the results from this and then we put it back into the model like through reinforcement learning, and we like fine tune the model through that. So there's a bunch of like interesting stuff that we have to do to make sure searching it is like efficient and fast.
Is working with these different labs, are the use cases, the edge cases that they want specifically very different? Or do you find times that like they're like, oh, we're kind of all looking for the same thing?
I think it really depends, right? Because
Yeah.
I think if it's more for like pre-training, which is like they just want like a large volume of just all types of videos, it's largely same where it's like they just want a very kind of like specific, okay, like a general, hey, like let me have this set of hours, this like insane set of hours of videos across whatever platforms you can find. Make sure it's like good quality or like have like a quality check, and then send it all out off to us, right? So like I think for pre-training it's like that. But the most interesting ones are our post-training customers, which require very like, for example, they have very custom labels they want to put like for example, one label is like reasoning, right? Like for example, it's like they want us to be able to describe why something is happening inside that video
Yeah.
for like every video in the data set. So it's like we have to like type out annotations or like these annotations to people to do some labeling on the videos. And then it's like they also have like custom ones. So one of our customers, they want like a very niche subsect of kind of like languages from these like platforms. So we have to dig up creative ways to like find these languages, filter out like subsets of these languages, and then like filter it all. So it's very like workflow heavy. It's like you have to make sure you have the operations correct as you're building it.
Does something like this require just like, I can't imagine you're sitting there trying to label videos all day. Like how have you built out a workflow of, system and the chain of command that goes down to people that are doing the labeling in certain types of ways? Like how have you figured out that process, and how difficult was it for you?
Yeah, I think this is something that's like super difficult for us. At first, it was like very manual work. Okay, like you take this video, and then we like clip down like, hey, this is one part, this is the other part that's useful, and we like type in a little summary. That's what we did for our YC demo. Actually, it was like a very like manual process. It took us around, I would say like 5 hours to label 8 videos. So like that's the type of like
holy
like
shit
insane kind of like, yeah, because you have to make sure that like every place is right. You have to make sure that like this label shows up as it like appears on this. And we eventually got it down to the point where it's like we fine-tune models to be able to like place these things on top of specific parts of the videos. We have a tool internally called Clipbox, which lets us like clip this part of the video and clip this part of the video and have like an AI inside like do like the labeling for us based off like a prompt that we give it. Or it's like we have Swipebox, for example, like I said, like the Tinder for like kind of like labeling, where it's like you swipe this if it fits a category, swipe like right if it, you swipe right if it does, you swipe left if it doesn't, and then you like fine tune, you take it, you fine tune the model again. So it's like a bunch of stuff like that we eventually just like build up over time. Now it's like we can get about a sample out to a customer. I think, for example, like they want samples of like 100 videos like labeled internally, and we would take only around like an hour or so now with like all these like, different workflows with like these like fine-tuned models. So yeah, it's been a lot of progress on our end to like build up internal workflows for this. And I think eventually on like we're gonna do more outsourcing, like talk to people, kind of like outsource this labor to elsewhere. Like we have like the rubrics for people, and we just like start sending it off to people to kind of like label some videos for us, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like once you go through a 5-hour process and you figure it out once, it's like the goal from there is to your point, like slowly get faster and faster to the point where it's like, okay, well, we can do robust, like massive long hours of video in, minutes and whatever the time frame is. But it took getting the 5-hour rundown to actually like get to a point where you know exactly what a good quality like label looks like on a video.
Yeah, and I think what's super interesting is like since we have 4 co-founders, right? It's like we can delegate work a lot, and it's almost like kind of like talking to your customers, right? Except you're talking to like people working in different parts of the system, right? So let's say, for example, someone on the team is like specifically doing the labeling for the videos, or like they're doing like the typing like labeling for a video, right? We would be like, hey, like what are some problems you're facing? What are some internal tools that you'd like to see to improve this process? And since like AI is so good at kind of like making up these like simple prototypes, like we don't have to worry too much about like design and like edge cases. So we can very quickly spin up like internal products to be like, hey, like this should solve your product. This would improve your workflow. Give it a try and give me some like feedback on it. So it's very similar to like talking to outside customers, except you have to talk to people like inside your team about their problems.
Now to switch gears a little bit, because you applied to YC, you get in, like you're like, all right, I'm out of here. I'm out of school. Like, what was the application process for you? Like getting into YC, like, did you have a high idea that you would get in, or like, what was the vibe like?
Yeah, so we actually applied once, and I think for the fall batch, and we got really, really close to getting in. We got like an interview, and then we got a Senate interview, and we got like a ton of follow-up emails. And I think what eventually happened was like they wanted to see more traction from us. And what we got from that was essentially them telling us like, hey, like we really like your idea, we like your team a lot. just a little bit more traction, and we'll probably let you in for the second round, right? So it's like that was very clear to us. So I think like the second time we applied, it was like, okay, like if we just apply, it's like a very straightforward process. We kind of knew that like if we could show more traction from last time, have like more revenue numbers, have like more product, have like an actual working product, for example, we were pretty much guaranteed to kind of get in. And I think it turned out to be that way. So I think second time was very straightforward. First time was, like applying and being very uncertain about the future.
When you look at kind of the landscape of the process of getting to YC, and then you get in and like you're building so far, based on your experience, like what has been like the best thing you've taken away, or the thing you've like learned that has kind of like helped you along your journey the most?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think YC, the most important thing it teaches you is how to sell your product. I think is the biggest thing. How to make sure that like people actually see the value from it. Because I think for a lot of technical people, right, like engineers in school, it's very easy to build products, especially with AI now. It's more easy to prototype products. But how do you actually, for example, say a price out, right? How do you be like, hey, like this is worth this amount of money? How do you go from there, right? Like this person's going to negotiate with you. This person's going to like try to like, like obviously take it down. You have to find a way to like negotiate the value and like kind of like determine the market price for these things. Also, just like not being afraid to like say out numbers. I think at first we were like, as young founders, I think a lot of people tend to like undervalue their own products, right? They'd be like, hey, like we could sell this, give this to you for free, give this to you for like this amount of money. And I think it actually has a counter effect where the other person is like, oh, like maybe this product isn't that valuable. Because like big corporations have more money to spend than most people realize. And I think it's like, if you throw a number that oftentimes is like higher than expected, you know what, like they'll usually be like, hey, like they're willing to negotiate, they're willing to like take you down from there, and you can find like a price that everyone agrees on. So I think that's like the number one thing that YCS taught me.
That's a very good point. The idea that it's also you get taken more seriously. Like if you were to throw out, hey, this is going to be like $5K a month, like, oh, that's so cheap. Like, nah, I'm not that interested. Yeah. But if you're like, oh no, it's a $150K a month product. Like if they really have the money and they really need the thing, they're probably gonna be like, yo, like, okay, like what do we get for 150K? Like it's almost like they're going to like want to entertain the conversation more and realize like, oh shit, these guys are like they're either bullshitting me or like they really believe in their stuff because they're charging a price that's insane.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like one of the earliest principles that we were actually talking to one of like the initial, like one of our angel investors was that like, if the problem they're having is like big enough, right? If this is like a truly big problem they'll have, if you throw out an outrageous number, they will want to negotiate. Like it's very rarely where they're like, okay, like this is a big problem. If you throw out a big number and they're like, no, like we don't want to talk to you anymore, right? Because like if you're actually solving a problem for them, they very much want to work with you. They want to like try to make this work for like both of you guys, right? So I think that's like a principle to take in mind whenever you go into negotiations, in my opinion.
That's a very good way to look at it. And this Y Combinator, from the teaching you how to sell products, right? Like, how do you give me like the breakdown of like, how do you price like an API for training data? Is it like per video? Like, give me the like the pie in the sky.
Yeah. So I think the best way to describe it is like, we actually mess this up like initially early on, like terribly. I think it was like, we were like I said, like, initially we were just like providing social media data to kind of like advertising companies, right? And so they had an API they could just like kind of call. It was like super cheap. And for some reason we were like, oh, like let's get it down to like super cheap so everyone uses our platform, like make sure that like, like we're making like, we like barely made any money from it. And so from that, I think it was like, it was like very cheap. And like when you try to increase the prices, I think people are like, oh, like why are you increasing the prices from here, right? It's like they're trying to like talk to you about like push back against you increasing the prices. Whereas I feel like now it's like, as we negotiate with like bigger customers, right? For example, we now price it per hour, and it's like we can throw out like some like an insane like amount of pricing for hours, and if they really need it, they're like, okay, yeah, sure. So it's like we will be like, okay, for this amount of like data set, we'll take about like $30 per hour, for example, right? And you have like 100,000 hours, and from there they'll be like, oh, like typically market price is like this amount of value, like why is yours like this? And we give like a couple reasons. They'll start negotiating, and from there we can meet at a point where it's like, 26, 27, like 25,000, like $25 per hour, which is like honestly like a very good deal for us, because I think initially we go into conversations expecting like, I don't know, like $15 per hour. So when you feel high, like they're more willing to negotiate down from there with you.
I mean, if you got, let's say you sold 100,000 hours a video at 25, bro, that's $2.5 million. That's only 100,000 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, this space is very lucrative, I will say. If you can find a way to like effectively like label all these videos, like have some like very valuable source of data.
Yeah.
AI labs are willing to pay like huge premiums for stuff like this.
Oh,
and I
man.
think it's like you just have to figure out what problems you're solving, like what unique skills and like abilities that you have to collect unique points of data and like find ways to like label it that's different from everyone else. And AI labs will want to like improve their models, and so they want to talk with you guys.
You know what's also very interesting about this like short form, and then eventually as you expand into all videos, like the way you would label a video is different than like how somebody who's like twice your age and has been in AI would label a video. So you come at it with like a younger perspective, and I'm guessing like some of the context labeling behind it also like shows that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's actually a point that I think we like punch home pretty strongly. Is like not just like that we're young, but I think it's like we come from different backgrounds, right? And I think another like super important point is like as like video models are getting better, like as VLMs are getting better, as world models are getting better, they need better ways of like upper level, high expertise human labeling, right? So for example, in the past, it was like you could outsource this data to, for example, someone overseas, and they label the data like super cheaply, right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of like Scale.ai's like main product was like you can get like super cheaply labeled data for your models. But as these models get better, we need higher level expertise. And so what that means is like instead now it's like, for example, if it's like a math problem, right? You would have a mathematician try to like label this like the steps, like how they would solve it. There's like companies, I think like Hill Climb is doing something like that, or like they have like actual fans of sports label sports clips, because they know like more intricate like technical steps of like what's going on inside this like what's going on inside this like scene. And from that, it's like you have these like different perspectives of different people who have like different expertise levels and like different ages like find different ways to like label the same piece of data, which I think is incredibly useful for training upper level VLMs. And that's something that like we prioritize heavily, is like getting high quality labelers to label like high quality data. For example, if it's like a set of like plumbing videos, right? We want plumbers to label this because it can give like more intricate like details into what's actually going on, instead of someone just being like, oh, this person's like twisting a pipe, this person's like, like pulling two pipes apart.
Yeah. It's like you can say the person is pulling two pipes apart because there was a blah, blah, blah leak over here that you can't really see because there's no context on it in the video. But to solve that leak, the pipes need to be twisted this type of way because it's industry standard, whatever the case is. Right?
Yes.
Like that's actually,
absolutely,
that's super interesting. It's like, it's like almost like the model of like, how do you get the highest quality person for that individual piece of data to be like the most certified data ever?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think like at least from like kind of like a bigger perspective, it's like we want kind of like models to progress towards like general intelligence, right? And to be really general intelligence, like you have to understand the deeper reasoning of why we're doing stuff, and having that, like being able to achieve that deeper reasoning only starts when we have like people who are very knowledgeable in the space label this piece of data.
I love that. And to that point, I think it is time for the Warp Speed Lightning Round. The Lightning Round is sponsored by Warp. They are HR, payroll, and compliance that runs itself with AI, and they are a sponsor for the stream. And every startup that comes on, I try my best to convince them to take a call with Warp, because they give startup founders 6 months free for running your payroll with them. They're also a YC company, but we have a rapid fire round where I'm going to shoot 5 questions at you, and you just got to answer them really quick.
All right, let's go.
All right, first question: would you rather build in public or stay in stealth?
Build in public, definitely.
Question number 2.
And
oh, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah. I think just the reasoning behind that is I think building in public lets you kind of like get a lot of feedback quick, and that's always a good thing for founders, in my opinion.
I love that response. Number 2, would you rather raise money too soon or bootstrap too long?
I think I would actually rather bootstrap too long, because I think it's like if you really believe in something, you'll try like other ways to like make money by yourself, like find different sources of like revenue that you can put into the business if you really believe in it. So I think it tests your like mental strength on the idea that you're building.
Question number 3, what's your biggest VC lie detector question?
elaborate a bit more on that.
Yeah. Like if you were trying to like suss out whether or not you want a VC in your round and they're chatting with you,
Hmm.
what's one question you would use to like test their character?
Oh yeah, I think the biggest thing that like one big thing that I would do is like I would kind of like say something that's like semi true that like I hope they catch on to be like, hey, like they want like question this more. If they
Hmm.
have no idea, if it's like a very technical thing that just goes over the head, then I know it's like, oh, like they probably have, like no idea what's going on inside the space. And I think for us, we're very like deep into the research space, we're deep into AI, so I want people who are like, like very very technical inside the inside our cap table.
That's smart. Next question I have for you. What is the most overrated startup advice you've ever received?
Mm. I think it's a fact that, oh, hold on, let me
Yeah,
take a
take your
minute on
time.
this.
Yeah, I got this one has you in thought. See, I knew I'd trip you up.
Yeah, yeah, this is a good one. I never thought about this. Um,
If you want, we can skip as well. You don't have to answer it. I have a whole horde of them.
all right, yeah, yeah. Let's skip this question.
All right. Would you rather have one investor with a huge brand or 10 angel investors that are incredibly helpful and have hustle?
Honestly, 10 angel investors, because I think that like they'll usually invest in safes, which give you like more kind of like ability to kind of control the company a little bit more. And I think with angel investors too, I think it's like it's always helpful to have like more connections with just people who like are big in the industry, right? So it's like
Yeah.
we typically get like researchers to invest in us, and they like help us immensely.
All right. Last question. If you couldn't be an SF, but you had to build the exact company you're building right now, which city would you pick that's not New York?
Oh, that's a good one. I would honestly say like Shenzhen probably, away from the
Ooh.
United States, because I think that like there's a ton of AI talent there. There's a ton of cool things there, and honestly, like just a ton of cool things in China in general, I think.
I want to get out to China so bad. I've only heard good things. Like at some point I need to get out there.
Yeah, they say like Shenzhen is like the Silicon Valley of China, so I think it's a very like fast paced space. I think you would enjoy.
I think you're spot on. And with that said, I want to jump into the next topic, which is training data and like kind of this next frontier of like video training and the whole thought process behind it is like normally what happens is when somebody comes up and does something that's novel, and I'm sure there's been other people that have traded video data, but I think what you guys are doing and like how you see it is different. And it's kind of allowed you to like realize that there's a huge market for this. But when you talk about like, okay, how much you can get per hour to train a video at a very high quality and sell it to a lab, like what do you think the biggest bottleneck for these AI labs are that is creating such a demand for higher and higher quality video labeling?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're going through kind of a same space that text was going through a couple years past, right? So like in the past, we had things like Common Crawl, which is just like a giant repository of like all texts, and like very like had like no labeling on top of it, right? So like if
Yeah.
I wanted this to get labeled, they would go, for example, to Scale, to Mercor, to like these like the Surge to get it labeled for them, right? I think as video models get better and better, as like robotics, as world models start taking shape, that same shift is happening to videos and kind of just like vision in general, right? And so I think that like there needs to be a place where there's like this like giant repository of just like every possible video that can easily be searchable, right? So it's like labs can pull in like, okay, like very custom data sets they want whenever they want
Yeah.
to like fine tune their models, to do post training and all that type of stuff. So I think just like this accessibility of data is something that I think is really big, because not only are there like open AIs and like Anthropics, but there's a lot of like smaller like mid-sized labs who also are doing stuff with like video data that like now can afford it, right? Like
Mm.
labs such as like Canopy Labs, for example, is like a really big lab that I think is doing some like insane stuff. And they're working with like vision models. So just like these type of labs can also spend like a lot of money on this data, and they typically don't have kind of like the access that OpenAI has, and so they need like places to get like data readily available and for video
Yeah.
data. And then past for like text data, it was very easy. It was like there's Common Crop. It's like images. There was like ImageNet, for example, right? But there's no really good place for just like video data in general. And I think we really want to be like this like open kind of this like research first company that provide people with accessibility to data.
I love this because when you talk about why like these labs struggle, and the idea that when you think of how big OpenAI and Anthropic are, I find it hard to believe that in the future, just like with anything, there's always somebody else that comes in, and there's always another player that comes in, does something slightly different eventually, and we see like a bigger player, rise to become a challenger. And it's very hard to do that if there's no open playing field. And like for most of these foundational labs, you literally have to raise like, $500 million almost out the gate to even have enough to like start competing in the data training and foundational model training space. Like when you think about overall accessibility, do you think as you label more data, pricing across the space for this sort of thing goes down, but volume goes up to match the additional demand?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's kind of like our main goal, right? I think this ties back to what I was saying at the start is like, I come from like a research background, right? Like I fully support researchers. This is like something that like I love to do, right? And so I understand that like as kind of that as innovation increases, accessibility should also increase along with it.
Yeah.
Right? Like it shouldn't just be like a top few labs having access to like all this data, be able to train like this like insane models, but it should be like all these labs, all these researchers should have access to be able to play around with like video models, like video data to fine tune their own models, because it should be like a widely like accessible technology to everyone, in my opinion, right? And I think that like another part that's like overlooked a lot of times is like university labs, right? University labs typically don't have the funding to like spend like tons of money on like video data compared to like OpenAI or like these like other labs, but they're doing like a ton of kind of like valuable resource like research into these spaces, which I think that like providing these labs with the ability to like get access to high quality labeled data, video data, is like incredibly important in my opinion.
I think you're spot on. And I think that your overall thesis behind where the industry goes is like pretty accurate, because it's happened in almost any industry. Even when you look back to like, the steel age, it's like what made Carnegie get so rich. It was the idea that he made steel affordable. And then after that, you saw so many buildings going up where it's like, oh yeah, the demand for steel goes up because it's cheaper and more things can be built. But it's like, it's the only way we get to a point where there is some, in my opinion, a high level of transparency and quality in what product looks like. Because I do think that having first mover advantage in like something like, OpenAI or Anthropic is very important. But I also think there's a world where you look at all the data some of these like apps are getting from just like being like, layers on top of them. Imagine if they could use that data to just like build a foundational lab, even if it's just like a development test site. Like eventually we get to a point where everyone's like, oh man, if it's commoditized to a point where there's enough open source, like high quality AI to be able to like build on top of that and create our own foundational models, why would we want to continue giving our data to somebody else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like, I think it's like a very core kind of like principle that we see with like a lot of industries, like you mentioned with like the steel industry, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's like, okay, like as for example, as like phones and computers were easier to manufacture, like there became more phone companies, more computer companies, and that eventually pushed innovation to be like, okay, we have better phones, better computers, because there's like more competition around the space. People have like interesting thoughts. People are like doing more research into this field. And so I think that like if AGI was to truly be like created, I think it has to be created where it's not controlled by like the few top labs who have access to this, but in a space where smaller labs, smaller companies can also contribute to this research, contribute to pushing like the space forward. And that's, in my opinion, like the only AGI world that I think I want to live in.
I agree with you. I don't want to live in a world where like my future is decided on the internet by like 2 or 3 companies that have raised a shit ton of money. But like to jump into kind of the next point, because you're very well spoken for your age, and I can tell like you think very deeply about like things at a high level. When you think about kind of like the journey you've gone through to get to this point, researching and testing and trying different things, and now building like a company you're super excited for, what's like a piece of advice you'd give to a Berkeley student that's like sitting where you were maybe 24 months ago, and it's like, bro, I have an itch to build something. I know I'm smart, but like I'm stuck. What advice would you give them to help them like be able to undertake that journey?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that I think all entrepreneurs should have is to be curious, right? Like always look to find problems, always look to find spaces, I think is the thing. Like for example, with me, right? Like the only reason we kind of found this space is by we like saw companies were like interested in this. So we like dug deeper into the space. We started like researching what's going on, the landscape. And as you research more, it's like, wow, there's like a problem here, there's a problem like there's a problem like over here that you can like potentially like dive into, right? And so I think it's like read lots of books, in my opinion, read lots of articles. Like my co-founders and I, we have a Discord chat where we like send just like links to each other about like interesting articles, interesting books. Sometimes not even about like the company, right? Just like about like history, about like geography, about like whatever, right? And so I think it's like read a ton of stuff, like watch a ton of like people. Like I think in my opinion, like watching you, for example, has been like, oh, like you see a ton of like cool startups being built, cool industries like appearing. I think it's just like a really interesting space that like just like absorb content, absorb information as much as you can, and just always be on the lookout for cool things to do.
Yeah, you're spot on with that, because like some of my best, I'm gonna be honest, some of my most enlightening moments have come from chatting with people like you, and like not only just learning about what you're building, but just seeing how you handle yourself, like your presence, like your thoughtfulness and how you go about building, and like what really matters, and like what motivates you in like the space that you're building in. Because I think a lot of times, because it's like content and short form and all these different like information sources kind of like are in our faces 24/7, like I'm getting more just kind of human to human interaction. And I don't see it as like, oh, I'm interviewing somebody and it's like the most fucking like overly produced professional thing ever, but more so like I get to chat with people every single day about the things that like matter most to them. And I learn a bit more about like the motivations behind why people do things and like what's truly interesting. And when you're trying to detect other people's bullshit, especially like when you see someone go on like a Sam Altman where he's like, oh, I'm going on here to talk about this thing, and like I have this crazy, my favorite one actually, and it's funny because I actually love the app, is like the Polymarket guy when he was like, oh yeah, you know, Polymarket is the most truthful thing ever, and like we're building the future of truth. And I'm like, brother, it's just to me it's just gambling. I see it as like gambling, which is like how maybe most people see it, but you know, you have to, I guess some people play the role of like it has to be the most overly performative thing ever, so you have like that Steve Jobs moment. But I think just being yourself and being genuine to who you are and like what drives you is like the thing that's what's most important. And I think a lot of people probably see that in you and by how you conduct yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that like just like exploring space, be open to a lot of ideas, and you know, like being able to know what's like right or wrong, right? I think this goes back to also what I was saying at the start, like being research. I think as a kid, right, like I did research in like biomedical research and urban planning research. This is like very far parts of the spectrum, right? Of like things that you can look into. I think that like that kind of like mentality, that kind of like eagerness to kind of just like look for cool things and like reach out to people to like learn more, I think is like a thing that I think all founders should have. Is just like being able or like wanting to explore this field, being like, hey, like I read about this, super interesting. I'm gonna talk to professors, maybe join one of their labs, or like I read this thing, super interesting. I'm gonna talk to professors, join one of their labs, see if there's like problems to solve inside this, and then eventually that's how you build great startups and build great companies from there.
Oh man, this has been a fun conversation, but now I have to put you through the rite of passage for every YC founder. You got to go 3 rounds in YC Arena to end out the stream and end out the week. You got to play YC Arena like a YC partner, analyze 3 pitches, and decide whether or not they deserve a shot to get into YC.
All right, let's go.
All right, Brian, I'm taking you into it. So at any point in time, you can stop me. If you feel like you know the answer of whether or not bro got in, you can just stop me and I'll stop and we'll go from there. All right, pitch number 1. Let's see what we got.
Hi there, my name is Anthony Riddle-Blatto, and I'm the founder of Imaginix.
I think it's reject. And the reasoning why is because I think solo founders typically have a very slim shot. So that's my reasoning.
Oh my God, that was just the most spot on call ever. He's like, yeah, 3 seconds, he's out of here. Yeah. All right, pitch number 2. Oh Lord, not another one.
Y Combinator. I'm Derek Wanzen. I'm founder of Alpha Cola.
Oh yeah, I think this one's also reject.
Damn, you're breezing through these. We might have to do 5 of them.
Hi.
Hey, you got more than 3 founders this time. You got more than 1 this time.
I'm Mansi.
I'm Ankit. And I'm Kunal. And we are the co-founders of Lossip, Lossip is a vernacular, hyperlocal, location-based information sharing platform. I know it's a
I think it's
mouthful.
reject.
Oh my gosh. All right, let's see if you can get
Yeah.
5. Let's see if you can get 5 in a row.
Hi,
All right.
All right, this one might be good.
my name is Jose.
I'm Carlos.
And I'm Nicolas.
We are founders of Polyglota, the social method for language learning. We're from Chile, and in Latam, only 2% of the population is able to speak English fluently.
We've been basically obsessed in the last 10 years on how
I think
combining
this
the
is
best.
accept actually. I
Really?
think this is accept. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God! What?
Oh.
You're fucking cracked. Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
How did you know? I was gonna reject them. I'm not gonna lie.
Really?
Damn.
Really?
Yeah, you're cracked. All right, last one.
Hello, I'm Kian. I'm the CEO of Storyrbits.
Hi, I'm Christoph. I'm the
This is reject. I think this is reject.
I don't know what they were even thinking. You went 5 for 5. The fact that you called that reject, I'm not gonna lie. I was going to reject them. You have great foresight. That's nuts.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, I think for me it was like, oh, like, you know, like they had a good problem to solve. You know, they obviously sounded Chilean, so I think like they knew the problem space well enough. And
Yeah.
I think from there, I think it was accept.
Well, Brian, you in the game 5 for 5 in flying colors. I appreciate you pulling up on me, bro. I'm excited to see you at demo day. I'm coming to SF next week, and I'm trying to curate a little dinner. So I'll shoot you a DM, man. If you're free, I'd love to invite you.
Oh, I would love to pull up. Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. All right, bro. You have a happy Friday. I'll see you soon.
Of course. You too. See
Take
you soon.
care. Man, dude, I don't think we've gotten a bad founder yet. I don't know how we've gotten this lucky, but just chatting with some of the most talented young folks ever. Like a data aggregation scale AI style company for short form video. I don't think y'all understand how fucking crazy that is. Like Zuckerberg's probably going to try to buy him one day. And if not Zuck, maybe it's OpenAI. Maybe, I don't know who it's going to be, but somebody's going to try to buy him. Like, that's how crazy it could get. You know what also is nuts? When he starts really like subdomaining out, where it's like, oh yeah, hey, AI Labs, do you want to know why content goes viral? Well, we're going to now go get top content creators and pay them to start like, to start labeling certain videos. To me, that's when it gets like super, super crazy. So great stream. Great way to end the week. We're going to hop off. Next week, the show will probably be on like some sort of twitch.tv/vesting. But thank you guys so much for hanging out. Have a great weekend. I'm going to play a lot of golf tomorrow. And as always, become the impossible. Take care. And bye, Ice and Dark. I love you, my brother. We got to catch up soon.